Alright YouTube, in this video we are going to see how to create a basic website with the help of Laravel. As you can see, this is a basic website which I have created. You can see there is a menu link, menu bar and a footer. Inside between those you can see there is a content which is separated as sidebar and the content. Fine, you can see this is a sidebar and you can see this is the menu links that are working fine and the sidebar appears on all the pages. Along with that, you can see these are the enquiries. In the enquiry also you can see there is a sidebar. Now we have common footer for every pages and common navigation bar for every pages. This will appear in all the pages. From now you can see if I enter the contact, this will be stored in the database. In the previous video we just created database by our own, but now in this tutorial we are going to use Modal, and this is the right way of using database in Laravel. Fine, now when I click on submit, you will see the data is stored in the database and you can retrieve these data in the enquiry page. And you can see there is a alert message as well as our message sent. And in the enquiry page you can see this is the data which I have entered right now. Fine, there is a problem with the footer and we will check it out why that error is. Fine, now if I did not fill any field and click on submit, there is the validation part also in this tutorial, and we are going to see how to create this validation part along with database CRUD operation. If you enter just the name, you can see the email field is empty and the message field is empty is showing up, and data will not be sent to the database unless all the data is sent. Now you can see if I click on contact, there is the active class applied to it. We are going to see that as well, and this is the steps which we are going to follow. We are going to start with the database, as I have promised you that we will look on the model in the next tutorial, and this is the tutorial which we are going to focus on the model for creating tables. Now the very first thing is we are going to create a database. Creation of database is done manually, but creation of table is taken care of Laravel. Now we are going to create a database called messages. Just enter the name of the database and create, and this error shows that we have already have the database as messages. We need to change it. I'm going to change it as enquiry. I'm going to create it. Once this is done, we will proceed to the next step. We are not going to create the table. The Laravel is going to create it by itself. Get into the Laravel installation page. You will get the code for creating a project, a Laravel project, which will provide the files, required files. We will name it as simple websites. Fine, we are going to paste this code in the command prompt, and I have stored it in the XAMPP folder inside htdocs and inside Laravel. Now I'm getting into the C drive so that I can show you where we are. Inside the C drive I have installed XAMPP, which is Apache server. Now I'm getting into htdocs. You can see this is the path. Now I'm getting into the Laravel folder, and now this is the folder I'm going to create the project, this tutorials project, which is naming which I have named simple website. Now you can see there is no folder named simple website. Once I click enter and it installs, you can see this says that installation is successful. Now you can see there would be a folder named simple website. Just by entering the command, Laravel created itself. Now I am going to use the Sublime text. I'm going to choose the file. As I have shown you, it's inside the Laravel folder. of XAMPP. Select the folder and it will open the file structure, so that you can I can clearly show you what each of it does. Now we are going to create a model. We are going to create a model with the name as of the database. Fine. Get into the project folder first, so that whatever we write, we're going to create a model page. That's the reason why we are inside the project folder. This is a code php artisan make model, and the name should be equal to the name of the database. Once it is done, you can see I will show you. Now I'm going to show you the for the file which is created inside the app. Inside the app, you can see there is a page called Enquiry. Now I'm going to delete it. I'm going to create it again, this time with migration dash m. So what it will do is, inside the database, now you can see there is only two files. Once I run this, you will see a file with the name, date, and the name as create enquiry is created, and inside this page our table is going to get created. Now we are going to create the column on the file which we have retrieved. Fine, this is the code. Now we are going to add increments, so that it will be added 1 2 3 as a primary key, and this is the column name. Now, as you have seen in the contact page, we have three fields. The first one is name, and the second one is email, and the third one is messages. This is of string. This should be of string. A Laravel convert the string as varchar by itself. We don't have to worry about it. The third one is, you can also, instead of string, you can also use medium text, but we are not going to use medium text. We're just going to use string, so that we will look all the other possibilities in the coming videos. Now once it is done, we are going to modify the env file. Just modify the database name as our creator name, which is Enquiry. Once this is done, run the server and add the, now with the help of one code php artisan migrate, this whole page is going to run, and it is going to create the table. Now the database has no table. Now you can see, once I run this code, you will see some three or four table would get created. php artisan migrate is the code. Now you can see table created successfully. These are the list of tables which Laravel has created. Now you can see this is the table which we have named. Inside it, you can see there are column id, name, email, messages, and these are the two columns which Laravel created by itself. That's fine, let it be. Now we are going to create pages. As you know, we are not interested in repeating the codes like head html tag, head tag, body tag, which will be repeated on all the code. Now we are going to see our project in the live server. Now once it is done, you can see a page is loaded. This is the welcome page. We are going to see where it is loaded. It will be inside the resources folder. Inside the resources folder, we will have a folder called views. This is the welcome page, and this is where all the welcome notice. If you want, you can modify it as well. I have just shown you the place of the page. Just by knowing the location is not enough. We need to know the web.php. This is the place where Laravel understands the URL. You can see I'm going to create a folder called layout. Inside the folder, I'm going to create a file. Instead of slash, here we would use dot. Now you can see inside the views I'm going to create a folder layout. Inside the layout I'm going to create a file called template.blade.php. please note, blade.php is really important. Now would the repeating code I would place it inside the file called template. These are the repeating code which should be repeated on all the pages. Instead of repeating it on all pages, I have just created a common page where it will load. Once this is done, I'm going to create a section like header, footer and content section. These are the repeating codes. Let it be on the single page. These would be the content section, and the navigation links will be on the header section. Create a class called header, and like content and footer also, so that we get the common header, common content and common footer for all the pages. Fine, place the navigation inside the header. I want the content to be of the class, to have the class container. Let's have a paragraph inside the footer. Since this is bootstrap, we can use the bootstrap class. Class text center will align the paragraph center to the div with class footer. Fine, you can see. Now what we are going to see is, I have made a mistake. I should have used the bootstrap 3 code instead bootstrap 4. This is the bootstrap 4 version. I did not want the bootstrap 4. I wanted the bootstrap 3. Anyway, we will continue it. Now we are going to inside the resources, inside the layout, inside the welcome page is there. We don't need this right now because we have created our own template and mentioned it on the web.php. When there is a slash, what this slash means, this slash is usually mean this domain. In this case it is our IP address. When the IP address loads, I want it to get into the layout folder and find the template.blade.php file. This is the file, and load it. Now if you just enter, now we are going to create the style. We have the CDN of bootstrap. Now we are going to create our own style sheet. I will place the CSS folder, and inside the CSS folder we have a file called style.css, and this would be inside the public folder. We have to create a folder called CSS, and inside the CSS I'm going to create a file called style.css, and I'm going to style the footer. As you can see, the footer is on the top. We don't want it. I'm going to use the position fixed so that it get fixed to the bottom of the screen. Position fixed, and bottom as 0 pixel, width 100%, and let the height be auto, and let's make the background color as black. As you can see, now it's fixed to the bottom. Let the background be black, and let the text color be white. Instead of giving the CSS, I am going to use the bootstrap class text white. Fine. Now you have learned how to link the style in the Laravel. Now we are going to create a common sidebar. Inside the content, I am going to create a row. This row will be divided into 8 is to 4. As you know, row will have column of 12. Row is a column of 12. I'm going to divide it as 8 column in one side and 4 column in other side. And inside the column of 4, I'm going to place the list item so that you can understand you can add anything on this place, which is the 4 column grid. I'm going to place the UL inside the well, which will have some border and padding. Now you can see it has come on the right hand side because we have used row. I did not like the bootstrap 4. I'm getting into the bootstrap 3, and I'm going to change the CDN and also the navigation, and this is the code which I was looking for. I'm going to replace the navigation from bootstrap 4 code to bootstrap 3. Now this is the navigation which I was looking for. I forgot to change the CDN. That's the reason why it is doing this error. Let me change the CDN as well, so that we get our clear output. Yeah, I have changed the CDN. Now you can see this is the desired required output. Now we are going to create the file. We are going to create 4 files. The first one is home, which will be inside the folder views. Home.blade.php extension is must. We will not use the extension, but Laravel understands it. As you can see, I am placing it inside the folder resources. We have views. Inside the views, we are going to place it not on the layout folder but on the views folder. Extends layout dot instead of slash, we are going to use dot template. This is the parent page. Whatever we write inside the home, it will be whatever we write inside the home, it will get into this column. How? Just by writing one line, which is at yield. This yield will be replaced with the homes page, but we need to mention at section content. Whatever we pass inside the content should be equal with the content, with the yields parameter. You have seen the content is equal to the yield content. Now just to demonstrate you, I'm going to place a paragraph which will have some lorem ipsum. The same way I'm going to create about.blade.php and again contact as well, and one more page to display all the data fetched from database, list.blade.php. Fine, now we have created the pages. Now we have to decide the URL. What or what, as you can see, when the URL home is called, the home page, home file to open. When the contact should be of the URL contact, the about should be URL of about, the details, or you can see the enquiry should have the URL as list. Whatever we write inside the href is usually the URL, and we have decided the URL. Now we are going to use, now just by creating the URL, just by creating the page, Laravel doesn't know the location to fetch it. Please focus. Just by creating 5 pages, Laravel does not understand where the page is unless and until we register it into the web.php. What this web.php will do? This web.php will show where each file is. Like if there is a request of home if there is a request of home URL, let's say we have mentioned it on the href as home. If there is in the URL I have used home, so Laravel will go to the web.php and find the URL home. Now let me show you. These are the created pages. Inside the routes there is a web.php. Now you can see when there is home, when there is a request for URL home, it should load home page which is inside the folder view. The same way, when there is a request for URL about, it should load the view about. The view is simply the file inside the views folder. When there is a request for URL contact, it should load the file inside the view named contact. When there is a request for list, it should load the file list which is inside views folder. As now if you refresh, I have not mentioned the slash. You can see the slash is for the home, or you can see IP address or just your domain name. Now it is working fine. When I click on Enquiry, it changes to list. When I click on contact, it changes to contact. When I click on about, it changes to about. When I click on home, it changes to home. Now this is the now I'm showing it without the registering, without registering in the web.php. Now if you click on home, the Laravel doesn't know where to find. Inside the web.php I have erased it. If you click, if you create contact, it will, Laravel doesn't know where to find. If you get into list, Laravel doesn't know where to find unless and until I specify in the web.php that if this URL happens, go to the function. But this is the wrong way. The right way is to create the controller. This is the role of the controller. So what we do is I press Ctrl C to get into the edit mode, PHP artisan make colon controller, and let's give the name as page helper. This name actually it suits the function. It says controller is created. Now I run the server. The controller will be inside the folder app. Inside the app you will have the folder http. Inside the http you will have controller, and this is the page helper. This is our controller. Whatever function we have write in the web.php, we have to rewrite it on the controller page. This function is nameless function, isn't it? When there is a slash request, it should load this function, but it should not load over here. It should get into the controller page. Now I have named it as home. When there is a request for slash, it should get into the controller page, and inside the controller I have a function called home. The same way is the same way is for home. When there is a request for home, get into the controller named page helper, and inside that I have a function called home. When there is a request for about, get into the controller called page helper, and inside the page helper I have a function called about, and this about is going to load the view about. So when there is a request for about, get into the controller and run the function about. This is the nameless function, and I'm going to name it on the controller. This code is going to repeat for every pages. When there is a request for URL list, get into the controller called page helper, and inside the page helper I have a function called, since it's a nameless function, I'm going to name it as list. This function will load the view on the controller page. Fine, I have saved it. I'm going to run it, and it shows there is an error. Let's check what it is. It was nothing. I'm going to save it. When there is slash request, when there is home request, get into the helper, page helper, which is inside the HTTP folder. Inside the HTTP folder, I have a folder called controller. Inside the controller, this is the function is going to load. Now this is the right way of routing. Now you have learned how to route. Fine, this is the URL. Get into the page helper. Page helper, you can see this is inside HTTP, and it will load the function about, and this about will load the view. View is simply a folder, and inside the folder we have a file called about.blade.php, and it will load. Where it is, let me show you the page as well. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create the contact page. Previously I have just created with the Laravel, but contact page should have form. This form should have three fields as we have mentioned it on the table. The first one should be of name. Don't forget to give attribute name to the input, or else it will show error. For this example, I'm going to make all input as text instead of email and password. As I said, don't forget to give the attribute name to the input. Now I need the text area code, so I'm getting into the bootstrap. I'm just going to copy and paste it instead of writing, and again I'm going to give the attribute name to the text area. This name is really important. This is how we fetch the data. Once, as you can see, the view has appeared. Once you click on submit, what it should do is it should get into a page called create submit, sorry, contact submit. Contact submit, the page is not yet created. Contact submit page is not yet created. So when there is a request for URL contact submit, get into the controller, and controller will have a function called contact submit, and inside the function whatever we write, it will get loaded. For just instance, let's just give an example. Let's just give an text like display after submit. If there is a request for this URL, it should get into the controller, and the controller it should get into the controller, and the controller will load a function, and the function will run the return statement. Fine, this is working. Now use the model to insert data into database. A model is a thing. Model is used to fetch data from the database. As you have seen, these are the three fields which is going to get saved on clicking the submit. These three fields is going to get retrieved with the help of the request function. I'm going to use the model. To use the model, we have to use it on the top. Use, it is inside the app folder. You can see inside the app folder we have a file called Enquiry. Use app of capital A, Enquiry. Create the object of Enquiry and give the reference to it as $E. $E will have the column as of our table. The first it will have name, it will have email, it will have messages. Now with the help of the request, we are going to get the input value. The input value is simply is getting retrieved with the name attribute of the input. This is email. This is the reason why I said the attribute name is really important for fetching data, and the reference of model will have a default function called save, which will save all the data. After getting saved, I want the function to redirect. This should get redirected to the index page. In our case it is home, and it will load the home view. Now I'm going to test it. I'm going to submit the name, email and password. Let's just submit my name itself. It's just an inquiry, you can write anything. I just zoomed in so that you can see clearly what I am writing inside this is whatever I write is not the topic of this tutorial. If I click on submit, you can see it got redirect to the home. Now I'm going to check whether the data is inserted or not. Of course it has inserted. Now once the data is inserted, I want to redirect it. It is done with the success message. We failed to have the success message. I'm going to pass the success message with the function with. It will have two parameters. The first one is the variable and the second one is the message, and the variable here is status, and this status I will use in the session. This status I will use in the home page. Now I would check. This would be inside the alert. So I will create a div with class alert day alert success. I'm just showing the success message, so that's the reason alert success. Now first I'm going to check whether there is any variable set. If the variable is set, then give the div with alert success. Use the curly bracket. Fine. It is. I hope this should work. Once you fill all the value, it should redirect to the home page with the message as message sent successfully. Fine, it is working absolutely fine. Now what we need is we need to add validation to the contact form. When I click on submit, there is a function. You can see now it is not validated. It says name cannot be null. We need to have validation. For that, get into the function. This is the function. When there is submit is click, this will trigger this function. So use the variable this, and it has a function called validate, and inside that we have to pass our request along with the name and the associative array. So we have three fields. Email field is also required, and messages field is also required. This is the code for validation. Once this is done, show the error message. This is for validation. If there is an error, what it will do, it will show it on the contact page itself. It will show in the div with the class alert danger. So previously we have used session. Now we have a predefined function called errors, $errors. If there is a count of $errors, then display this div. There cannot be one error since we have three fields, so it would be of three or two or one or more than one error. So that's the reason why I'm using for loop. This variable errors also has a predefined function which is all. I'm going to end the for each, and the variable err will have all the errors, the number of error, the number of for loop. there is a mistake. I have missed the semicolon on the page helper. And this will show the line. You see, variable this, it is before that. So before this I have missed the semicolon, that's why it is showing the error. Now if you run, if you click on submit, there would be of 3 errors. Now fetch data on list page. Now in the inquiry page, this is Laravel, we don't need this. We are going to use a model to fetch data from the database. Inside the web.php, when there is a request for list, it should load the page helper controller, and inside the page helper controller we have a function called list. This function is inside the HTTP folder. Inside the HTTP we have a folder called controller. Inside the controller we have a file called page helper. Inside the page helper file we have function called list, and we are going to use the model with the predefined function all, and it is going to get stored as the associative array with the variable name all db values. With the help of with function I'm going to pass it, and this is the variable name, and this is the data which we have fetched with the help of all function. And this sending values we will retrieve it on the list page, which is inside the resource folder. Again I'm going to use for each loop, but before for each loop we would check all the data is fetched inside the all db values, and all db values is passed as sending values. If there is a count of sending values, run the for each loop. I'm going to use the ul list item, unordered list items of the bootstrap free class. Just copy it and paste it, and first list item will display the name, second list item will display the email, third list item will display the messages. To display we will use the double curly, which we will call as blade. These double curly opening and double curly closing bracket we call as blade. Fine, this is how we fetch data. So if you click on enquiries, these are the data from the database. Whatever we write inside the contact file, it will be stored on the database, and the stored database can be fetched by the page list, which is under the name Enquiry. On the it shows message sent successfully, and now you can see in the Enquiry page our message. Finally, now when I click on home, when I click on about, the active link is not getting appended. So in the Laravel, so get into the template page. It is where the navigation code is getting loaded. Just to remind you, it is inside resources, inside layout, it is inside the layout folder we have a template file. This class is getting appended only on the li. Please note, the active class is getting appended only on the li. So the if condition, just to test it, I have added it on the about. Now you can see it is working. I'm going to have the if statement. If the request is slash or home, if the request is home, then add the class active to the li. Fine, this is the code. If I click on home, you can see the active is appended. The same way, if the request, just copy paste it, let me copy paste it. If the request is about, then load the class. If the request is contact, then load the class active. If the request is list, then load the class active on the listed item. Fine. Now we are going to see a unique section. I need a unique section that should get only appended on a specific page, a section that should be applied on a specific page. In this case, I'm going to use the jumbotron to get the attention. On home page, I need a separate content. On contact page, I need separate content. For that, I'm getting into the common page. The same technique is what I'm about to use. Just above the body, in our case it is content, I'm going to place the jumbotron. At first I will show you just for the home page. H1 would be very huge. If the request is for the URL home, then show this block. If the request is for home, then show this block and end the if. Fine, this is it. Now if you click on home, you will see this code will get only appended on home. Let me make it h6. H6 also won't work. Let me make it h3 with class text center. Class text center, so that we get the heading on the center. So this is just for the home page. Now the same way is for about. If the request is for the URL about, then load this content. Let's not use it on contact and inquiry. So you can see we have added header, content and footer, and each page is working absolutely fine. If I type it again, enter the details on the contact page, you will get the you will be redirected to the home page with the success message. Fine, success message is working, validation is also working, the submitted value is also getting fetched. That's all for this video. Thank you so much for listening.